Lawyer Kimberly Crenshaw introduced the term intersectionality to name a theory of identity and of power that makes clear you cannot separate experiences or identity into discrete parts. Each note or ingredient of our identity is infused by other notes or ingredients. For example, if you are black and you are a woman, you don't experience being a woman and being a black separately. You experience both the opportunities and challenges society has attached to these social categories together as one. This is why understanding intersectionality is important. No person should be reduced to just one element of their identity. And to understand how power operates, we need to understand different forms of power and how they intersect, and that certain subsections of the population are uniquely disadvantaged by these doubled and tripled oppressions. You may now be wondering why there is a piano in front of you if our topic is identity and power. The best way I know how to explain intersectionality is through music. The piano is divided into sections of 12 notes. Each note is unique, but after a cycle of 12, they start to repeat, just higher in pitch. When several of these notes are played at the same time, this is called a chord. When we hear music, we usually do not hear distinct notes. Instead, we hear chords. We can identify the notes, but we cannot extract just one note from the sound of the chord. A person's identity is like a chord. Each note represents a social category that infuses identity: sex, gender, class, racialized ethnicity, age, nationality, etc. Just as notes combine into a chord, social categories combine into a person's intersectional identity. Identity elements include where you grew up, what type of family you had, religion, able-bodiedness, neurotypicality, but usually scholars focus on sex, gender, race, and class. Now, I will start to map some of these intersectional traits to notes on the keyboard. For example, the note C will represent a white person, while the note C sharp will represent a black person, and the note D will represent an Asian person. The note D sharp will represent a woman, while the note E will represent a man. The note F will represent someone who is non-binary, and so on, all the way up the keyboard. Now that each key has been mapped to a trait, let's start to compare two people, or chords. First, I will play a very common chord, the C major chord. This chord is likely pleasant to your ears because it is popular in Western music, the music people in the United States hear every day. The notes combine in a way that we are used to, and since we are familiar with the chord, it sounds good to us. Similarly, somebody with these intersectional traits would be familiar to us. They appear and sound normative, and this combination of traits is something that we are used to seeing. It fits a cultural idea of who is important. Now, I will play a rarely heard chord, D major 7 sharp 5. To you, this chord may sound a bit off, or even bad. It isn't a chord that is commonly used in popular American music. However, this chord appears commonly in the Phrygian mode of music, which is used often in flamenco music and is sometimes called the Spanish gypsy scale. So if you were from Spain, this chord would sound normal and be pleasant to your ears. In the same way, this combination of intersectional traits can be more common in other cultures. It makes sense or is intelligible. But in America, this chord is less familiar, and it is judged negatively. In the same way, someone with these intersectional traits is less familiar in America. They do not fit the norm and are therefore given less opportunities. The majority defines this chord as an outlier in America, and they do the same to this equivalent person. However, one thing is shared among these chords. They both have a lowest note, which they are based on, and can invert themselves based on what scenario they are being played in. Those lowest notes become more prevalent and become the context we hear the chord in. In the same way, certain aspects of our intersectional identity can be foregrounded based on the situation we are in, whether by us or by another who is perceiving us. For example, if the D major 7 sharp 5 person went to apply for a job, they may want to foreground the fact that they are college educated, and they can do so. However, if they get pulled over driving back from the interview, the fact that they are black might get foregrounded by the person perceiving them. While we can have some control over what part of our intersectionality is displayed, It is impossible to completely control how others will see us, and what parts of our intersectionality they will pick out and highlight as most important to them. Intersectionality is a complex theory that we have only begun to explain. We have barely scratched the surface of intersectionality, and I encourage you to explore and learn more about it on your own. However, I hope this video has given you a basic understanding of what intersectionality is and why it is so important.